The Institute for New Economic Thinking is founded in recognition that the economics profession has been a little bit off course. Trying to reestablish an open debate among the leaders of the profession, trying to acknowledge that we have lost our reputation for expertise through this crisis, and the profession should band together to rebuild its perspective and re-earn its right to act as an expert and as a guide to society.
I think economics is a tremendously interesting and tremendously important field of study, which is probably going to be more important in the next 10 years than it's been at any time in the last couple of decades anyway. But it has got into a dead end. The promise and the point of INET is really to relaunch economics, to be able to address the public policy issues that are now confronting the world, and also, I think, to bring economics back to its roots. Economics was created really in its present form in 1776 when Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations. The point of it was to derive new ideas for public policy in order to make economies work better. I think for the last 20 years, economics has lost that. The greatest economists of the past, people like Adam Smith, Ricardo, even Keynes, would not be recognized as economists today. If Keynes or Ricardo or Smith applied for a job today in a leading economic department in a leading university, they wouldn't even get an interview. If they submitted one of their works to the American Economic Review, it would be laughed out of court because it doesn't use the techniques, the models of modern economics. And I think it's very important that economics should at least be reopened to those kind of ideas of its great founding fathers, which I think it's forgotten over the last 20 years.
The mission of the Institute for New Economic Thinking, certainly as I see it, ought to be to say it's all right, to think in unconventional new ways. The truth is, it's not just something that's happened in economics over the last decade or two, it's something that's happened in most other scientific subjects as well. The process of professionalization and peer review has imposed a kind of standard orthodoxy on people in a way that in the long run stifles rather than stimulates creative thought. And I think economics has become, because of the practical failures we've been talking about, one of the worst examples of the ways in which that rigidity of orthodoxy actually goes wrong.
If you're going to make permanent intellectual progress, there has to be follow-up. Okay, one thing follows from another. Decide which of these points of view is correct and which one is not correct, and not just keep moving on. And so we need something that is more institutionalized, that's more stable, in which you can build, and that's what I see INET as being about. That it is opening the conversation, but it's also more directive. It's trying to go somewhere in particular, and not just following the fad of the moment or whatever the provocation of the moment is.
The mission of the Institute for New Economic Thinking is to create conditions for a younger generation of economists to really step forward and express things freely, what they see, what they perceive, what they think the economy looks like, where its strengths and weaknesses are, to help them to measure things that haven't been measured before, to help them see things and say things that they've been afraid to say because they've been afraid of not being published, not being promoted. We need to open the dialogue, we need to open the debate. We need to have serious, purposeful minds work together, starting from the understanding that we have failed in the most recent episode, and we do have to renew ourselves.
What I hope will be achieved in the Institute is that young economists coming to the profession today find it possible to pursue a variety of avenues. I talk to a lot of economists now, young economists nowadays, who don't really believe the orthodoxy which they're being taught and on which they're researching, but know, and I have to say their judgment is mostly correct, that if they want to get jobs, that these are the tram lines they've got to go down. Though I think the most useful thing we can do in the Institute probably is to say, well, there are lots of other tram lines you can go down, and we don't know either where most of them are going to lead. And some of them won't lead anywhere at all. But some of them might lead to where we really ought to be going. We'll discover that when we get there. That's the frame of mind that I hope the Institute will promote.
A number of students came up to me and said, why are we wasting our time studying that perfect market model? It's so clearly irrelevant. They wanted to have more of their time devoted to understanding the kinds of issues with which INET is concerned. My best students have been involved in trying to understand how the ideas related to the kinds of concerns that INET has been concerned with. So the hope is the young people who haven't yet committed themselves to, you might say, a flawed set of ideas, that have their eyes more open. And to me, that is really the hope of INET, that we provide them an opportunity to look, to think about what are some of the alternatives. Many of them, I think, are entering economics in the same motivations that led me to enter economics. They thought economics provided a way in which they could exercise their intellectual faculties on problems they think are important for society. And when they do that, I think that they will respond and say, these are the kinds of ideas that we want to help develop.